Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you all how to get into logic. And I'll be splitting this video up into 3 different parts. The first one being all the logical components and what they do. The second one being all the game mechanics and what they do. The third one being some simple circuits to use in your builds. And additionally, I'll give you some logical advice at the end of the video that will help you build great logical contraptions. Let's get into the components. Currently, there are tons of logical components in the game, so I've split them into 3 classes. Let's start with the inputs. Now, the inputs are things that you have to do a certain action to get an output based on a certain thing. Let's go over what each of the inputs do specifically. First off, we've got the button. Pushing the button gives a short output based on how long the button is pressed. Toggling a lever gives a constant output, and untoggling it removes that output. A pressure plate gives an output if anything is standing on top of it or anything is on top of it in general, like a blueprint or a piece of wood. The clock switch will give an output based on if the black line is within this white border. You can adjust the white border with these 2 buttons here to give you a custom output based on what time of day it is. The wood detector will turn on if any wood inside of it is matched to the wood detected in front of it. For example, if there's oak wood inside of it and oak wood in front of it, it will give an output. Next up, we've got the laser. The laser is very similar to the wood detector because you need to turn the laser on and it will be detected by this module here. Now, you will need a laser and a laser detector for it to work, and a player can interrupt the laser line. Next up is our output. To start off, we've got the chop saw. The chop saw will cut any wood in front of it as long as it's powered like so. After that, we've got the firework launcher, and you can reload it for 20 money and then fire it, but currently there's a glitch where you'll be stuck with the E-check, so I'm not going to fire it for now. So just keep that in mind when using fireworks, is that there is a glitch going around, and I don't think the Faulty has any intention of patching it. Next up is the hatch. Pushing this button will turn it on and off, which will flick it up and down. You can do this with doors too, but you need more wires because you have to put the wires on the knobs. Next up is the conveyor. With logic, you can switch the direction of it. After that is any light source. This includes lights from fancy furnishings and work lights like this. Some loose items can also be activated by this. Example is TNT and presents. Neon wires will turn on if any logic is powering them. Additionally, neon wires can also transmit signals like normal wires. The size of the wood coming out of the sawmill can be adjusted with logic also. And finally, truck spawners and trailer spawners can also be activated with logic. Anyways, let's move on to our intermediate logics. To start off, we've got 3 different gates, and they all look the same at first, but if you look closer, you can tell which gate it is by the little icon on the side. If it's flat, it's an AND gate, if it's curved, it's an OR gate, and if there's 2 curves, it's an XOR gate. The AND gate needs both powers on to give an output. The OR gate needs either one of the levers on or 2 of them to give an output. It gives no output if nothing is going into it. Next up is the XOR gate, which is kind of a combination of both of them. If one power is on, then it will give an output, but if both powers are on, then it will not give an output. Again, if both powers are off, it will also not give an output. Next up is the signal inverter. You can tell it apart from the gates because of its size and of its logo. Turning on its lever/power will reverse the input, so if it's on, it will be off. If it's off, it will be on. Finally, we've got the signal sustain and signal delay. A lot of people get confused between these 2, but it's actually quite simple what they do. If an input is given into the signal delay, then it will delay that input and keep its duration and then give an output once the signal is delayed. The signal sustain does the opposite. It holds the signal completely until it doesn't have any more power left, in which it turns off. From climbing up walls to wood flinging out, Lumber Tycoon 2 has a lot of weird mechanics, but some of these mechanics can be very helpful when dealing with logic. So I'm going to go over 3 of them. First of all, we've got item locking. Now item locking can be super helpful in designs that I will show you later, but it can also be super unhelpful in things like fancy elevators and other contraptions that use moving parts. Basically how it works is you see that the conveyor is pointing in the opposite direction, but until I actually update the wood, it will not move. Anyways, next up we have lever hopping, and now what I call this is, I call it lever hopping. I don't know if there's an exact name for it, but basically it's where if you turn a lever on in front of another lever, that lever will go crazy. See, it's being powered by the other lever, but when it's powering itself, it also powers itself again, which shuts it off. So it will create an infinite circuit like this. It's pretty weird and pretty random and can be useful in a lot of circuits. You can also toggle it on and off by toggling this lever. Next up, this mechanic is basically, well, it's pretty simple. Basically, if you have a signal inverter and a wire around it, you'd think that this wire would power the signal inverter, inverting the signal, but it actually doesn't. As you see, the wire's right next to this unpowered wire, yet it won't power. This is a strange mechanic that is used in a lot of things like RS NOR latches, which we will explain later also. Anyways, that's going to be it for these mechanics. There are a lot more, like I mentioned at the start, and mechanics are something that you just find out while experimenting with logic yourself. Anyways, let's move on to some quick contraptions that will help you in your big logical build. There are tons of small logical circuits that can be used in builds, but I'm just going to be showing one to every game mechanic which I just showed off. Anyways, let's start with the player detector, and you probably know me for this because it's one of my most famous builds. It basically just detects when the wood moves, powers the pressure plate, and returns the wood back to its original state. Again, there are videos on this for tutorial, I'll leave it in the description so you can check it out. Next up, we've got the T flip-flop, and this uses the lever mechanic where it powers itself. Basically, what I've done here is trick the lever into powering itself and then unpowering itself when you hit this button. So as you see, it powers itself, and as you see, there's a little output. You hit again, now there's no output. So yeah, that's my little T flip-flop. Next, we've got the RS NOR latch, and an RS NOR latch is similar to the T flip-flop. Basically, it just uses wires connecting into the inverters to produce that false powering circuit. And it's a pretty funky system, and it's pretty complicated and advanced, so I won't recommend trying to use this in your builds for now. I would stick to the other two. But yeah, that's basically the RS NOR latch. You power one, it powers. You power none, it doesn't power. Power the left, it powers the right. And if you power both, it powers neither. So it's basically like a complex gate. Now that you know what all of the logical components do, all of the game mechanics, and all of the small circuits that help you in your bigger endeavors, it's time to focus on why you're really building in logic with the first place. In order to make a logical build, you need to have an idea, and in order to get an idea, you need to think of a problem. For example, let's say, oh, my truck spawner, it takes up a lot of space. So what if I have a select system where I can select which truck to spawn and which one I want to spawn with which trailer? That would be a good logical idea. Now from there, you have to use your skills and some skills that I've taught you along the way to make up in a contraption that works. Now, not all contraptions are going to just work the first time. You're going to need a lot of testing and bug fixes and even some luck. And eventually, you'll be really good at logic. It's not an overnight thing. You can't just become good at logic in one day. And you definitely can't become good by watching this video. I personally am not that great at logic compared to other builders like Source Code. I'm pretty bad at logic compared to them. But I feel like I'm decent enough to tell you guys some advice and what all of the components and game mechanics do. Anyways, that's going to be it for me. If you make a cool logical device and you want to share it to me, you can share it on Twitter or my Discord. Both linked in the description below. You can also comment it down below if you don't have any other platforms. Anyways, this is going to be it for me. Goodbye.